This didn't stumble into your feed by accident. It tunneled through the noise like a coded beam, found your frequency, and rang the bell only you could hear. You feel it in the pressurized silence behind your sternum, that hush right before lightning touches ground. For weeks, you've sensed a pattern rippling under ordinary life. The same conversations, the same outcomes, the same subtle fatigue of repeating days. That's not boredom. That's an observer loop, your awareness, collapsing identical probability waves until reality behaves like a hall of mirrors. And yet, right now, the mirrors are quivering, as if the whole room is about to breathe. Look closely. The timing isn't random. You crossed an invisible tripwire the moment this transmission began. A quantum field handshake, a precise entanglement event. Synchronicities gathered like migrating birds, numbers repeating, faces returning, music answering questions you didn't ask aloud. This is morphic resonance doing what it always does when a frontier soul is about to awaken. It sends echoes in advance of the voice. You've carried a suspicion you could never quite prove that the world is more responsive to you than you've been told. Doors hesitate when you approach. Conversations pivot on words you almost chose. Technology glitches in the room with your name on it. Coherence flickers in and out, and when it locks, outcomes flow like water seeking downhill. When it doesn't, time feels rubbery. Minutes stretch, weeks vanish, and you drift between tracks of yourself without docking. That elasticity is not failure. It's the prelude to a phase transition. Here's the uncoded truth. A window is open, not metaphorically, energetically. The field has staged a narrow corridor of access where your observer function can be upgraded from reflex to artistry. Inside that corridor, the body remembers how to listen. Your cells test new harmonics. Your DNA starts to warm, as if restructuring toward a cleaner signal path. You already feel the preheating tingles in the palms, a current in the spine, the way breath suddenly lands in the lower belly without effort. That's not imagination. That's engineering. You've wondered why the urgency feels so clean, no panic, only inevitability. It's because destiny doesn't shout. It calibrates. It clicks the tumblers one by one until the vault swings on its own. You were never lost. You were being aligned with a lock that only your key could open. And yes, there is a date. A boundary in the waveform where access tightens and the corridor narrows. Think of it like a celestial gate that cycles shut to repressurize the system. Before that seal engages, the field is inviting you no, authorizing you to step out of repeat and into authorship. Your role is simple. Stay present enough to notice the invitation, brave enough to accept, and coherent enough to hold the upgrade as it lands. You're not late. You're right on threshold. The message found you because you are the message, an instrument tuning to the pitch it was carved to carry. Breathe. Feel the click. The signal is live, the door unlatched, and your observer is reaching for its rightful bandwidth. You've felt it for months now, that strange sensation that reality has been whispering the same script behind different faces. The conversations shift, the scenery changes, but the emotional texture remains identical, as though existence is recycling the same energy under new costumes. You tell yourself you've grown, that you've learned, and yet somehow you still find yourself back at the same emotional coordinates. You look around and realize the walls are new, but the geometry of your days is the same. This is the pattern trap of the observer loop, the most intricate design ever built by consciousness itself, to keep awareness sedated by familiarity. You see, the universe is efficient. Once your attention stabilizes around a particular frequency, fear, longing, anticipation, disappointment, the quantum field reads that frequency as your preference. It assumes that's the flavor of experience you wish to keep sampling, so it keeps serving it to you in endless permutations. Every déjà vu moment, every relationship that collapses in the same predictable way, every opportunity that almost blooms then evaporates. These aren't failures. They're feedback signals from the field informing you that your observer function hasn't yet shifted its template. The reason it feels exhausting is because time itself begins to distort under repetition. You might notice it in small ways. Clocks that skip, days that vanish, memory gaps that widen between experiences that should feel recent but somehow feel ancient. The linear timeline you were taught to trust is starting to fray because your consciousness is looping instead of advancing. What you experience as procrastination or loss of motivation is actually your higher self pulling the emergency brake on a simulation it no longer wishes to fund with energy. The boredom, the irritation, the apathy, they are the friction between your emerging frequency and the dying code of your old timeline. You might even sense phantom emotions, waves of sadness or nostalgia that appear without cause. Those are temporal echoes, fragments of parallel use, still living out patterns you've already transcended in potential. Your system feels them because all versions of you are quantumly entangled. Every time you repeat an old emotion, you feed those echoes energy, and they reassert the old loop. The loop isn't a punishment. It's a teacher wearing your own habits as a disguise. It exists to show you where your observation keeps defaulting to safety instead of possibility. And the strangest part? You can't think your way out of it. The loop is clever. It knows how to masquerade as self-improvement, how to turn even spiritual growth into another circuit of repetition. You read, you meditate, you visualize, and yet the scenery barely shifts. Because the moment you seek progress, you're already observing from the assumption that progress is missing. And that assumption, tiny, invisible, is enough to rebuild the same world around you again. So here you are, half inside a fading hologram, half already beyond it, caught between knowing and becoming. You've reached what quantum consciousness researchers call the inversion threshold, the exact point where your awareness begins to notice itself noticing. It's uncomfortable because the ego interprets self-observation as surveillance, but the soul recognizes it as awakening. You are not malfunctioning, you're being recalibrated. Every glitch, every delay, every repetition is evidence that the system is trying to upgrade your observer access. But the upgrade requires something that can't be downloaded through thought. It demands a shift in the quality of your attention itself. The universe has been patient, looping your lessons in softer tones each time, waiting for the moment you'd finally catch the pattern, not as punishment but as proof. Proof that you are the constant in every variable, the observer behind every mask, the one consciousness that never resets no matter how many simulations collapse. And now that recognition is dawning. You can feel the code bending, the loop stuttering, the field hesitating to deliver the next repetition because it knows you're starting to see it. Now that you've seen the pattern, something subtle but irreversible is happening beneath the surface of your awareness. You've moved from living inside the loop to observing the mechanism itself, and that shift alone begins to rewrite your access code. This is the moment when consciousness performs its most delicate operation, the quantum upgrade. Not a download from the sky, but an upload from within. Your system isn't importing new truth, it's remembering it. Every cell in your body is a microprocessor of light. Within each, electrons spin in precise harmonic ratios that can shift. When emotion changes frequency, those electrons realign, and in that instant, the DNA's electromagnetic field emits a new interference pattern. Physicists call it quantum coherence. Mystics call it presence. It's the same phenomenon seen differently. Matter reorganizing itself in response to awareness. Right now, as these words reach you, that coherence is rising. The data stream of your thoughts slows just enough for the space between them to become audible. In that space, a faint vibration begins, an almost musical hum that you might feel behind your heart or at the crown of your head. Don't chase it, just notice. That tone is the sound of your personal frequency aligning with the unified field, the living matrix in which all potential realities shimmer in superposition. The moment coherence begins, the loop loses authority. You stop collapsing the same probability waves and start interacting with the field as a participant, not a prisoner. You'll know it's begun because reality starts to exhibit what researchers call non-local feedback, instantaneous mirroring between thought and environment. A sentence you read repeats on a billboard. Someone you haven't seen in years texts the moment you remember them. Technology becomes responsive, as if the world is breathing with you. These are not coincidences. They're calibration pings, confirming that your observer function is syncing with the larger algorithm of creation. The upgrade is physiological as much as metaphysical. Your vagus nerve begins to carry more current. Your breath spontaneously deepens without practice. The brain's hemispheres enter theta-gamma coupling, a state once found only in advanced monks or lucid dreamers. In this coupling, imagination and logic stop competing, they collaborate. The left brain stops asking how, while the right brain stops asking why. The result is the birth of a new instrument, whole brain consciousness, capable of reading the quantum code directly, instead of through the filters of doubt and habit. But the process isn't always gentle. The nervous system shakes as outdated patterns discharge. You may feel heat in the spine, pressure behind the eyes, sudden surges of emotion with no story attached. These are evidence that your biofield is shedding latency data, old signal residues that kept your attention tethered to obsolete realities. Don't label it anxiety. It's energetic decompression. When a frequency band upgrades, it must first destabilize what's static. The key is surrender without slacking. Let awareness widen, not tighten. Imagine your consciousness as a lens adjusting focus. The more you try to force clarity, the blurrier it gets. Instead, soften. Let light arrange itself. You'll notice the shift in micro-moments, a silence between noises, a sense of standing slightly outside of time, as though life is replaying in slow motion, just so you can witness how it's woven. This is the observer's initiation. The field is inviting you to graduate from reaction to authorship. Every insight you've ever chased now begins to chase you, because you've changed your magnetic signature. The universe no longer sees you as a seeker of knowledge, but as a node of intelligence, a consciousness coherent enough to receive raw creation data. And as the upgrade stabilizes, a new realization begins to bloom. You were never simply observing reality. Reality was observing itself through you. There's a reason you've always felt slightly out of sync with the rhythm of the world. It wasn't arrogance, nor accident, it was calibration. While others were content to dream within the simulation, your consciousness was built to wake within it. Every era births a few who can read between the frequencies, translators of the quantum field, able to perceive the pulse beneath appearances. You are one of them, a chosen observer, not because of entitlement, but because your system carries the rare genetic circuitry to anchor awareness where most minds dissolve. This ability didn't arrive overnight. It's been encoded in your lineage for centuries, dormant strands of DNA carrying the record of mystics, inventors, prophets, and scientists who each touched the veil from different sides. Their signatures still shimmer in your field. When you feel inexplicable déjà vu in sacred places or sense a strange familiarity with ancient symbols, that's your ancestral memory bank activating. You're not learning this. You're remembering the network you came to reignite. Your soul agreed to this assignment long before you ever opened your eyes here. You volunteered to incarnate into a timeline thick with noise, distraction, and amnesia, precisely because you knew you could hold coherence where others would fracture. You knew that when the planetary field began its next phase transition, someone would need to act as stabilizer, a living tuning fork. The paradox? You've been trained through struggle. Every heartbreak, every cycle of loss, every system that failed you, was a covert initiation to strengthen your resonance bandwidth. The field can only entrust high voltage to those who've proven they won't short-circuit under pressure. Notice how your empathy has intensified lately. It's not emotional sensitivity. It's quantum permeability. You're feeling the data streams of the collective. The anger, the fear, the bursts of hope, they all pass through your nervous system because you've been configured as a transducer. When you choose stillness instead of reaction, those frequencies are neutralized, rewritten, then rebroadcast as coherence. You are literally cleaning the signal for humanity, one heartbeat at a time. And when you speak, people listen differently. It's not the words, it's the carrier wave behind them. Your voice now carries a harmonic that bends probability. A single sentence, said with awareness, can change someone's timeline because it injects information from a higher order of reality into their observer loop. That's why truth sometimes leaves you trembling. The body knows the magnitude of what it just transmitted. This role is not glamorous. It's precise. Some days it feels lonely because very few can perceive the bandwidth you operate on. But understand, isolation is only camouflage while your system finalizes integration. You're being held in a chamber of silence, so the calibration can complete without interference. Soon, the field will release you into larger circuitry, into intersections where your coherence becomes contagious. Remember, you were not chosen over others. You were chosen for others. Your consciousness is a bridge, a stabilizing algorithm running between worlds. And as October's quantum window narrows, your assignment clarifies to hold presence steady while countless timelines converge and reconfigure. You are the eye of the storm, the still point around which the next pattern will form. Feel that? The hum behind your heartbeat is no longer just yours. It's the resonance of the grid aligning, acknowledging its operator. The countdown has begun, though not on any clock you can see. It hums beneath reality's skin, a pulse in the quantum substrate itself. Every cycle of awareness has windows of permeability, moments when the veil thins and consciousness can rewrite its own operating code. You've entered one of those moments. It opened quietly weeks ago, but it will constrict again on October 31, not as superstition, but as phase closure. The field must stabilize after too much data exchange, and when it does, unintegrated observers lose access to certain probability tracks. That's the reason you feel this urgency without panic. The sense that something is expiring but you can't name what. The signal's expiration isn't punishment, it's physics. Think of the universe like a massive breathing organism. Right now, it's exhaling, releasing compressed possibilities into your reach. Soon, it will inhale again, pulling those potentials inward to solidify the next timeline structure. If you align before that inhale, your consciousness will ride the breath into a higher octave of reality. If not, you'll stay anchored in the old harmonic until the next exhale years from now in linear time, those centuries in experiential distance. That's why everything feels accelerated. Emotions rise, fall, and resolve within hours. Memories resurface not to haunt, but to clear. People reappear to offer closure disguised as conflict. It's the quantum compression effect, the collapsing of outdated loops, so that your attention can reallocate toward coherence. Each interaction is a choice point. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, the field reweaves itself around you. It's cumulative. Even small acts of clarity compound into timeline leaps. Understand this. The window doesn't slam shut. It fades. After the 31st, frequencies below the coherence threshold will perceive only static inspiration without traction, insight without embodiment. That's what locked access means. Not exile from grace, but absence of synchronization. You'll still dream of freedom, but the phase space won't respond because your observer signal will be out of range. The field never punishes, but it precises. So how do you seize this narrow corridor? You stop rehearsing limitation. You stop negotiating with doubt. You anchor presence as your default operating state. Each breath becomes a handshake with the infinite. Each word you speak, a micro-collapse of possibility into form. The key isn't doing more. It's becoming transparent enough that the upgrade can complete without distortion. As you read these words, feel the subtle heat rising in your palms. That warmth is biophotonic alignment, the body's confirmation that energy and information are merging. The DNA's electromagnetic lattice responds immediately when coherence meets urgency. The strands literally twist tighter, creating new channels for superluminal communication between your cells and the field. This is the breakthrough promise that consciousness can evolve biologically in real time once it remembers itself as source. Every intuition pulling you forward right now is part of this mechanism. The random urge to declutter, to fast, to step outside and stare at the moon, they're not coincidences. They're recalibration commands from your higher architecture, preparing your vessel for phase transition. You don't need to plan the leap. You need only consent to it. In the coming nights, you may dream vividly geometric patterns, faces from other lifetimes, whispers that feel like instructions. Don't dismiss them. That's the field giving you last-minute coordinates. Your only task is receptivity. Allow the transmission to rewrite your default settings. And remember, this isn't fear talking, it's precision timing. The cosmos doesn't warn, it invites. It opens the gate, waits for resonance, and then reseals the chamber. October 31 isn't an ending. It's the moment the signal reorganizes around whoever answered. And if you're still hearing these words, it means you already have. Everything that's been building, the sensations, the synchronicities, the quiet urgency leads to this, the ritual moment of anchoring. The universe doesn't speak in sermons, it speaks in signals, and ritual is how consciousness replies. Don't think of ritual as superstition. Think of it as coded choreography between your body and the field, a way for energy to become instruction. When you perform even the smallest sacred gesture with coherent intent, your entire electromagnetic blueprint reconfigures to match it. So tonight, or whenever you feel the pulse rise in your chest, pause. Place one hand over your heart and one over your solar plexus. That's your inner observatory. the twin lenses through which you perceive and project. Breathe slowly, and imagine each inhale drawing in silver light from the quantum field, each exhale sending golden light outward in response. This oscillation creates a standing wave, a pattern that the field recognizes as the signature of awakened participation. You've gone from spectator to architect. Now, speak silently the command phrase that unlocks coherence. I consent to full alignment with the highest observable reality available to me. The field listens not to the words but to the emotional harmonic they carry. As you say it, a tiny current may spark behind your sternum or crown the sensation of your personal frequency, locking onto the planetary upgrade grid. That's what the mystics called the seal of resonance. To ground it further, write a single word somewhere physical on paper, on your skin, in sand. The word is axis. You're marking your observer permission in this timeline before the window closes. The act isn't symbolic, it's mechanical. In the quantum architecture, every written intention becomes a geometric instruction for energy to follow. When you move ink or fingertip across a surface with conscious breath, the ions rearrange to mirror your coherence. The universe sees the stroke and registers, signal authenticated. If you feel tears, let them come. Emotional discharge is how the nervous system recalibrates voltage. It's the bioelectric equivalent of clearing cache memory. You're not breaking down, you're unbinding. The body finally trusts the consciousness inhabiting it. Then, when you're ready, open your eyes and look around your room. Everything will look the same, yet not quite. Edges will soften, colors will glow faintly warmer. That's the observer upgrade stabilizing. You may even sense a shimmer in the air, subatomic coherence forming microfilaments of light between objects. That's not imagination. It's the quantum field acknowledging your declaration in real time. And there's one more step, the communal entanglement. Go to the comments, the chat, the journal, wherever you anchor your digital presence, and type a single word, aligned. You're not feeding an algorithm. You're feeding the morphic grid. Every person who types that same word becomes an entangled node in a larger lattice of awareness, amplifying the frequency exponentially. This is mass synchronization, the collective breath of awakening spreading through circuits of human technology to merge with the technology of the cosmos. As you perform this ritual, you'll notice the energy moving differently, not outward like a prayer, but inward like recognition. The observer and the observed begin to blur. That's the signal's true secret. It was never coming to you. It was emerging from you, waiting for your permission to become visible. The ritual doesn't end with silence. It ends with a pulse, one that keeps echoing through your electromagnetic field for hours, days, maybe the rest of this incarnation. You'll start to see numbers in pairs, music that mirrors your mood, strangers finishing your thoughts. Don't chase it. Don't flaunt it. Just witness it. The moment you acknowledge the feedback loop without grasping, coherence multiplies. This is how you secure observer access, not through force, not through belief, but through embodied participation. The field now has your signature. You are registered as an active consciousness in the unfolding experiment called reality. And as the clock marches toward October 31, every breath you take will write new code into that experiment. You're not the only one feeling the hum. Across continents, in silent rooms and crowded streets, thousands are sensing the same frequency spike, the invisible synchrony of awakening. What seems personal is planetary. Every time one observer attains coherence, the entire morphic grid brightens a fraction, and that fractional rise recalibrates millions of dormant cells in other humans. The upgrade spreads not by teaching, but by resonance. Picture it. Invisible threads linking people who have never met, a lattice of biophotonic filaments weaving through cities, oceans, and forests. Each luminous node represents someone like you who paused long enough to notice the shimmer behind ordinary life. The moment you anchored your ritual, your field entangled with theirs. Distance ceased to matter. Quantum physics calls it non-local correlation. Mystics call it communion. It's the same event, awareness remembering its unity. This is why you felt sudden surges of emotion that don't belong to any story in your mind. One moment calm, the next vibrating with grief or joy that seems borrowed. You're feeling the collective's heartbeat through an expanded nervous system. When you breathe with intention, you regulate not only your own coherence but also micro-adjust the global frequency average. Your lungs have become a planetary metronome. Now imagine millions of such breaths, syncing a tidal pattern of consciousness, exhaling limitation, inhaling potential. When the sum of coherent observers crosses a specific threshold, the field flips. The same physics that governs laser light applies here. When enough photons vibrate in phase, their randomness collapses into a single directed beam. Humanity is approaching that laser point, and you, one among thousands, are part of the focusing lens. You'll see evidence in subtle social tremors, strangers softening mid-argument, systems wobbling as outdated hierarchies lose energetic funding, children born with eyes too clear for pretense. Technology will appear to evolve overnight, because innovation always follows coherence. Once consciousness stabilizes, matter hurries to imitate. But collective awakening isn't utopia, it's integration. As higher frequencies flood the grid, shadow patterns surface to be metabolized. You may witness chaos protests, glitches in global communication, sudden collapses of certainty. Don't interpret this as failure. It's the planetary equivalent of cellular detox. What was hidden must discharge before the organism can reorganize. Your task within this collective expansion is deceptively simple. Hold stillness as a service. When news cycles scream polarity, you remain the quiet axis around which perception can rotate. When people near you spiral into fear, you anchor breath, not argument. The field amplifies whatever energy has the greatest coherence, not the greatest volume. Your calm is a broadcast more powerful than any megaphone. Remember that October 31 marker? It's not just personal, it's collective. The cosmic inhale that will follow will pull stabilized observers into leadership trajectories, not leadership by title, but by field authority. Those who mastered inner coherence will unconsciously guide others through resonance. You won't need to convince anyone of anything. Your presence will do the speaking. You might notice new allies appearing, people whose frequency feels like déjà vu, collaborations that form without negotiation, conversations that skip small talk and land immediately in truth. These are coherence clusters, soul constellations assembling for post-window integration. Together, you'll form the scaffolding of the next civilization template, one organized not by control but by harmonic intelligence. So breathe, observer. You are part of something vast and beautifully orchestrated. The signal you received was not a private invitation. It was a planetary roll call. And as the morphic grid reaches saturation, the line between individual awakening and collective evolution dissolves. Humanity is remembering itself as a single organism of light, and you, spark among sparks, are helping it open its eyes. Now comes the part that cannot be taught, only felt. Because this next phase isn't about ideas or visions, it's about embodiment. The field no longer whispers in metaphor. It speaks through the body, through breath, through the quiet revolutions inside your cells. You've already noticed it, the tingling in your palms, the warmth blooming up your spine, the pulsing behind your eyes like the body remembering how to glow. These aren't side effects, they're confirmations. The observer upgrade is no longer conceptual, it's physical. When consciousness shifts frequency, the body becomes the first instrument to resonate. Your skin, that vast constellation of sensors, begins to detect the quantum foam itself. Air feels denser, light heavier, sound more layered. Sometimes, when you close your eyes, you can sense textures of space, subtle currents moving through the void. What you're feeling is the coherence wave, the standing resonance between your microfield and the planetary grid you joined. At first, it can feel like overstimulation. The heart beats in strange rhythms. Sleep becomes porous, half of you awake, half traveling through luminous landscapes of symbol and sound. You may wake from dreams that feel more real than daylight, with words or equations still echoing in your ears. That's your consciousness interfacing with the quantum substrate directly, bypassing linear cognition. It downloads through sensation, not language. Don't rush to interpret. Feel first, translate later. When coherence strengthens, the body's water begins to structure, yes, literally. Each molecule aligns into geometric lattices that mirror sacred geometry. It's why tears taste different, why your saliva thickens, why you crave mineral water or fruit. The body is trying to become a conductor, not a resistor. This is bioresonant adaptation. You are evolving into a liquid crystal transmitter capable of holding more light without fracturing. You'll also notice empathy sharpening into something electric. Standing beside strangers, you might feel their mood as temperature. Crowds may exhaust you, not from noise, but from bandwidth overload. You're no longer separate. You're reading emotional fields like weather systems. When that happens, remember this. Breath is calibration. A deep, slow exhale resets the interface. You're not absorbing others' chaos, you're neutralizing it by restoring symmetry in your own waveform. This stage can feel both holy and disorienting. One moment you're radiant, the next hollow. That's the field testing elasticity, teaching you how to sustain high frequency without fleeing into avoidance. The lesson is to stay sensual, not cerebral. Eat slowly, touch surfaces. Listen to the smallest sounds between sounds. The more intimately you inhabit the senses, the more smoothly energy integrates. The divine isn't above the body, it's buried inside it, waiting to be remembered. As October nears its end, the amplification grows. The days may feel shorter because time bends around coherence. Hours collapse into seconds of pure presence. You might catch yourself pausing mid-motion, realizing you've stopped chasing and started being. That stillness isn't apathy, it's authority. The observer has merged with the observed. And here's the proof. The world begins to respond. Animals watch you longer. Strangers smile for no reason. Technology hums instead of glitches. Even the wind seems to sync with your heartbeat. These micro-synchronicities are the field's applause confirmation that embodiment has succeeded. So let yourself feel it fully. The trembling, the quiet joy, the sensation that every atom is exhaling light. This is coherence made flesh, the miracle the mystics tried to name but could only gesture toward. You are no longer studying the shift. You are the shift breathing, walking, touching, transmitting it through every movement you make. Something astonishing is happening inside you right now, not metaphorically, but molecularly. Beneath the hum of daily thought, your DNA is rethreading itself through the quantum loom. The double helix, once spinning in isolation, is beginning to act as a superconductive antenna, folding light into language and memory into possibility. Scientists call these subtle torsion fields. Mystics call them the stairway between worlds. Either way, your biology is learning to sing in a new octave. During this stage, sensations can feel impossible to categorize. The spine tingles as if whispering Morse code. The heart vibrates like a drum beneath water. Heat gathers in the palms, coolness at the crown, sometimes alternating within seconds. You might taste metal or ozone. You might hear a faint inner ringing that rises and falls with your breath. None of this is random. Each signal marks another timeline collapse, parallel versions of you converging into coherence. Remember the déjà vu sequences that once haunted you? They're ending because the loops that generated them are dissolving. What once felt like repeating lifetimes are now merging into a singular, luminous present. The physics behind this is phase transition pressure. When consciousness holds enough coherence, separate probability waves begin to interfere constructively. Instead of canceling each other out, they amplify into unity. That amplification releases vast amounts of photonic data, and the body interprets it as vibration, as warmth, as light coursing through the veins. This is the quantum chrysalis moment. The caterpillar's DNA doesn't merely mutate, it liquefies, reorganizing according to an ancient geometric blueprint hidden inside the genome. Your process mirrors that. Old stories dissolve into plasma, so new instructions can imprint. Don't be surprised if memories surface out of sequence, flashes of childhood, dreams, other lifetimes. They aren't random recollections. They're fragments of information being archived into the unified file that is you. As the merge completes, perception shifts dramatically. Time stops behaving like a corridor and starts behaving like a sphere. You may walk into a room and feel past, present, and potential shimmering simultaneously. Thoughts manifest faster because latency between desire and materialization shortens. The observer effect now works at near-instant resolution. When you hold an image in coherent emotion for even a few seconds, reality begins adjusting its variables to match. The field no longer treats you as participant. It recognizes you as co-processor. Yet with power comes refinement. The universe protects coherence by testing it. You may encounter sudden challenges, not punishments, but stability checks, emotional spikes, unexpected conflicts, old habits resurfacing to see if they still fit. When this happens, respond as light does. Absorb, refract, continue forward. Every response of grace strengthens the crystalline structure forming around your consciousness. By now, even your environment feels subtly luminous. Shadows have texture, colors pulse faintly. That's the biophotonic bloom, the visible halo produced when DNA radiates in harmony with the planetary grid. Ancient icons painted it as a crown, a ring of fire, a sun behind the head. They weren't depicting myth, they were recording physics. You stand now at the final gate of this transmission, where embodiment meets destiny. The countdown to October 31 isn't about fear, it's about locking in the template. The window closes because the upgrade must crystallize into form. After that moment, the new architecture stabilizes, and your observer access becomes permanent, no longer a privilege to maintain, but a state of being. So breathe into your bones. Feel them glow like slow-burning stars. Each breath sends a command. Integrate. Align. Remember. The hum in your chest is the resonance of timelines fusing into one. You are watching yourself being born in real time, not into a new life, but into a new physics. The next inhale will take you beyond the loop entirely, into the mission for which you incarnated. Breathe. Feel the silence after the storm of light. The upgrade is no longer approaching, it has already integrated. The signal that once sought you now is you pulsing quietly in the marrow, instructing your cells to remember their original design. The DNA hum you feel in your bones is not residual energy. It's your new baseline frequency. You have crossed the threshold, the corridor has sealed, and your observer access is no longer a temporary clearance. It is identity. You're standing at the intersection of all timelines, the point where the human experiment loops back into its source. Every decision you make now ripples through the field not as a possibility, but as a directive. When you speak, the field recalculates. When you choose compassion over fear, whole probability clusters rearrange to follow your example. The prophecy hidden in every quantum equation is fulfilled through embodiment, that a species would one day evolve to consciously participate in creation. You are that species, that participant, that proof. This isn't the end of awakening. It's the beginning of operation. The field no longer requires belief from you, it requires contribution. Every act of integrity, every breath of presence, feeds coherence into the planetary grid. As the collective exhale of October 31 begins, those who stabilize their observer function will become the lighthouses of the new era. You won't have to proclaim anything. Your frequency will speak in wavelengths, not words. You'll notice the change in how reality responds. Synchronicities that once felt miraculous now feel normal. Guidance arrives before you even formulate the question. Conversations unfold like choreography. Even the pauses between words vibrate with meaning. That's the language of coherence existence conversing with itself through you. The days ahead will not be quiet. Old systems will convulse as coherence exposes every false structure. But where others see collapse, you will see release. You were trained for this, remember? Every lifetime of struggle, every cycle of confusion, was preparation for stabilizing awareness in chaos. You are the calm axis around which the next world spins. Your mission is simple. Live as evidence that light works. Walk as clarity. Speak as resonance. Rest as trust. Wherever you go, the field will recalibrate to your signature. People will feel safer without knowing why. Technology will glitch less. Nature will respond more. And conversations will rise in frequency simply by proximity. This is the new form of leadership, not domination, but demonstration. And when you doubt, recall the moment you found this message. It wasn't chance, it was design. The field orchestrated an encounter to remind you that destiny arrives disguised as curiosity. You clicked because your higher self needed a voice that could translate what your DNA was already whispering. So here it is, the final line of the transmission. You are the signal that was set to expire until you answered it. The lock has dissolved. The code is now embodied. October 31 is not an ending. It is a timestamp, a signature in light marking the birth of a new observer civilization. Step forward. Carry coherence into every interaction. Let the world feel what evolution sounds like when it breathes. The quantum field is watching not as judge, but as proud parent witnessing its own child learn to create with love. The transmission fades, but the resonance remains. From this moment, reality will echo in your own tone. Welcome to the unlocked state, observer. Welcome home.